Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Now, how is everyone, children? Hope that everyone is well, enjoying your learning. Okay, today we are going to solve one more scenario-based question. This is of February-March 2024, paper 2-2. Before we proceed to the actual solving of the question, let's talk about what you need to know in order to score the marks. If you have followed the instructions religiously, then definitely out of 9 marks that are for assessment objective 2, you will be able to score some decent 7 to 9 marks if you are using the proper selection statement. You have identified that is there any requirement of any selection and you have used it appropriately. If any iteration is needed, then have you used the proper iteration statement like for to next or while do and while or repeat until? Is the question needing any sort of counting? If yes, then you have identified and worked on it. If the question is dealing with any sort of totaling, then have you followed the proper instructions and have you applied that also? Any input or output needed is properly identified and you have covered every single programming technique that is needed in your scenario-based questions. You'd definitely be able to score 9 out of 9. Another important thing is the variables, the arrays, or any other data structure that is needed. You have used this appropriately and you are using it for the required purpose. So if you have followed these instructions, then definitely you can see for yourself the data structures used store all the data that is required by the scenario. And with data structure, we mean any sort of array that is needed, any sort of a variable or a constant. So whatever is needed, if you've identified it properly, you have used it properly, then definitely you will be able to score 9 out of 9. Be very, very cautious that how can you store. Fine. It's not difficult. It's very easy. Now, moving on to the next assessment objective 3. What you need to know is, again, you can see what you should be working on is the program has been fully commented. Now, very important thing is the use of comments in the proper positions. I mean, you are using the relevant comments, you are using them in the right positions. Wherever it is needed, it is being present. So then you will definitely be able to score decent 5 to 6 marks out of 6. Again, you can see assessment objective 3 is maximum 6, and you can easily score if you're following the instructions. Suitable identifiers. Now, suitable identifiers, very important thing is your identifiers, your variables, your constants, your arrays, whatever you are using inside your scenario-based question is suitable with names meaningful to their purpose. That is very, very important. That whatever name you are giving to the variables, they should depict their nature, they should depict their purpose. This is what is going to be very important. Your data structures must have meaningful names. The program is in a logical order. You're following the sequence, like if you have written everything properly, but it's not in the right order, then definitely you will not be able to score. The solution is accurate. Now, if the same solution is given to a program, like if it's a program that you have designed, or if it's maybe a pseudocode that you have written, if it's performed, then it will be, you can say, following all the required instructions. It will be able to do the work the way it is desired without any sort of problems. That will be also considered as a plus point of your scenario-based question. The solution meets all the requirements given in the question. That is a very important thing. It is all the tasks that you are required to do. You have identified them and you have performed it. Then again, you will be able to score 6 out of 6. So accuracy, logical order, requirements being met, suitable identifiers, fully commented. If you are able to identify the counting or the totaling or any other thing, if you're following everything properly, then definitely 15 marks are yours. Okay, now one more reminder. You have 1 hour 45 minutes for the whole paper too, and that's what we know. Suggestion, finish your other questions in the same order as they are present in the paper within 1 hour maximum, so that the rest of the 45 minutes are there for scenario-based question or maybe for the revision of the paper. So, but you should be timing your paper in such a manner that you are able to finish all the questions within 1 hour, and then the rest of the 45 minutes are for your other stuff. Fine. Any questions regarding the assessment objectives before we proceed to the actual question? Okay, that's wonderful. Let's move on to the question. Students in a class are recording the amount of time in minutes spent in front of a screen for each day of the week. Interesting? Okay. The 1D array student name contains the names of the students in the class. The 2D array screen time is used to input the number of minutes on each day spent in front of a screen. Any questions till now? We have two arrays. The first one is a 1D array to store the student's name, and the second one is a 2D array by the name screen time. It is meant to store the number of minutes spent by each of the students the whole week. Fine. Now, the position of each student's data in the two arrays is the same. For example, the student stored at index 10 in student name and screen time is the same. So you can see, just for the purpose of making you comprehend, what I have done is I've made a sample array for you people. And you can see here, it's basically the 1D array student name that is present here. The 2D array screen time is also just made here for your understanding. And you can see position 10 is for just an example is taken. Don't take it like this, like Ali Ahmed, any random student. His screen time on different days of the week is just, again, imaginary values are mentioned here. Fine. The variable class size contains number of students in the class. Now, very important thing is they have mentioned class size is a variable, and this class size is holding the total strength of the class. And that may vary definitely from teacher to teacher, from class to class. Some classes have lesser strength and some classes have more strength. So class size is the variable that is holding the number of students in the class. Any questions? Clear? Any questions till now? Okay. Write a program that meets these requirements. Now you can see these are the requirements. Let's discuss each requirement for like properly. Allows all the students to enter their daily minutes of screen time for the past week. Now this is what you can see, daily minutes of screen time for the past week. Calculates the total number of minutes of screen time. Now, calculates, the first thing is the student to enter their daily minutes that they are spending on screen. Second thing, like maybe day 1, day 2, day 3, in this manner, all the days that the amount of time they're spending on screen, that is to be recorded. Calculates the total number of minutes of screen time for each student in the week. Now, this is very important. You have total class size as class size. Maybe assume it, if for example, if I say 30. So it means that for 30 students, each student will be recording his daily, like for the whole week, all the days that he's spending the time on screen. Then it means the total number of minutes. For example, if I say the total number of minutes spent by Ali Ahmed, first day 40 minutes, second day 60 minutes, third day 90 minutes, the fourth day 30 minutes, and then fifth day he's spending 50 minutes. So if I talk about just an example, so how many minutes is he spending the whole week? Again, a very good question. Thank you, Ali, for raising this concern. Just as an example, it's assume that we are talking about the days of the week when it's not school, when it's the school days. Maybe over the weekend, we can spend more time. So what you can see here, 40 plus 60 is going to be 100, 190, and then 220, and then 270. So it means that Ali Ahmed is spending this week 270 minutes of his time on screen. Isn't it? Fine. Any questions? Counts for each student. Now, this is very important. For each student, the number of days with more than 300 minutes of screen time. Now, this is very important. You can see for yourself what is supposed to be done. First thing is counts for each student, the number of days that he is spending more than 300 minutes of screen time. Can you see this? Number of days with more than 300 minutes of screen time. Aliyah is a very good boy. That's why he's not spending so much of the time. Fine. Calculates the average weekly minutes of screen time for the whole class. Now you can see after that, I have to find out the average weekly minutes for the whole class. Now this is very important. You need to identify, it's now dealing with the whole class. Which class is spending a lot of time? Finds the student with the lowest weekly minutes of screen time. Now this is very important. Lowest weekly minutes. Output for each student, the name, the total screen time in hours and minutes. Now, this is really interesting. Hours and minutes. It means that they're not asking us to find out and display the minutes only. They're asking me to find out, like, for example, 270 minutes for Ali Ahmed. Like, Ali Ahmed has spent 270 minutes. So how many hours and how many minutes does it make? So this is also to be taken into account. So what you have to do is you have to underline in the same manner so that you are not making a mistake when you are doing the final work. Fine. This is how you will even attempt the paper. Number of days with more than 300 minutes of screen time. Output the average weekly minutes of screen time for the whole class. Output the name of the student with the lowest weekly screen time. Now, this is what is needed. Which child has spent the lowest time on screen? So the name is supposed to be displayed as well. It's not only the lowest time, the lowest duration that is supposed to be output. Along with that, we have to display the name of the child also who's spending the least amount of time on screen. Fine. Any questions? The daily minutes spent is supposed to be taken into account, calculation of the total, the number of minutes, the total number of minutes to be done, count for each student how many days he's spending more than 300 minutes of screen time, God forbid. Calculate the average weekly minutes of screen time for the whole class, that is for the whole class, average. And then again, you can see, by the way, which idea strikes your mind when you hear the term average? Which concept is needed? Excellent, Ahmed. It's actually the use of totaling. Exactly. For average calculation, we definitely need totaling. So then we have to find out the student with the lowest weekly minutes and output for each student, his name, the total time in hours and minutes, and then the number of days that he's spending the time, more than 300 minutes of the screen time. And for the whole class, we have to output the average also. And the name of the student with the lowest weekly screen time also. So we have to see that how we solve the problem. By the way, what have we identified? If I ask you, like, we are clear, do we need counting here? Yes. Do we need totaling here? Yes, exactly. Because in order to find out the average, we need total. How many totals? This is what we will discuss also. And definitely along with that, we need the lowest also. So I hope that we all are clear about this concept till now. You must use pseudocode or program code and add comments to explain how your code works. All inputs and outputs must contain suitable messages. You can see must contain suitable messages. It means that you cannot just say input. You need to use along with input the proper output statement to display the input that is taken. Assume that the array student name and the variable class size already contain the required data. Again, it means that you don't have to spend your time in populating this array at all. This already has the required data. You do not need to declare any arrays of variables. You may assume that this has already been done for you. So just pay attention to these requirements, because if you are doing extra things which is not needed, which is already been told not to do, and you are doing it, means that that will be a wrong, that will not give you any mark at all. Are you clear? Are you clear with the basic understanding of the question? Isn't it something similar to what we have been doing, isn't it? The only change is now they're talking about the screen time, like the most important concern nowadays are the teachers and parents, isn't it? Our major concern is students spending a lot of time on screen, isn't it? Okay, now, now let's move on to the actual solution to the problem. You can see how will you score. Now, this is what are your, like you need to identify the arrays. They have to be used exactly in the same manner. You can't even change anything in the array names, which are student name and screen time. They have to be written in the same manner. The constant or the variable class size, like that can be constant also, that can be a variable also. And requirements. First requirement allows the students to enter their weekly screen time and calculates the total number of minutes of screen time for each student in the week. You can see what it needs to be done. Definitely for each student, input is needed. So that is why you can see input. The first thing for the first requirement as a part of your requirement one is inputs properly taken. Definitely, since we need it for the whole class, that's why iteration is needed. And since it's asking for the amount of time spent, the total amount of time, the total minutes spent on screen, it means that that is the concept of totaling. So if you have identified that which concept is required, then definitely, and you've written it properly, then you are able to fulfill first requirement. Requirement two, counts the number of days with more than 300 minutes screen time each day and calculates the average week's screen time for the whole class. It means here, I have to go for selection, definitely, decision making. So if you have identified which selection statement is more suitable, you have counted the proper variable, definitely you have initialized, definitely please remember, they didn't say initializing, they say declaration. And declaration and initializing are completely different concepts. And definitely when programming is done or when you're writing the pseudocode, then you need to initialize the required variables. Do not forget, okay? Iteration definitely is needed because you need to perform the same task in the loop and calculation of average. So if you have identified when to use what, it means that you are able to fulfill the second requirement. Requirement three, finds the student with the lowest weekly minutes, outputs for each student, the name, the total weeks, screen time in hours and minutes, and that is very important. That is what we'll consider. Number of days with more than 300 minutes screen time. How many days is spending more time than 300 minutes? Outputs the average week screen time for the whole class and the name of the student with the lowest number of minutes. It means that you have to find out the minimum value and you have to output it as well. If you have forgotten to output, then it means then again you are not fulfilling the third requirement. So be clear what you need to do. You have to find out the minimum, the lowest one, and you have to output it also. So this is going to meet your requirement number three. Any questions? Requirements one, two, three, clear. And this is what is simply identified from the question. You do it in the same manner. The way we are doing it, you do it in the same manner. You keep it with you, and then definitely you are able to do it. Understood? Any questions? Okay, fine. That's wonderful. Now let's move on to the actual requirement. Just for the purpose of making you comprehend, I've color coded it so that you can comprehend the different requirements. The first thing, the variables. I need a variable to hold how many days is the student working. Like I said in the beginning, assuming that he is, we are not talking about the weekends, we're only talking about the weekdays. So that is why the very first thing, as you can see here, is we are using a variable by the name week length, and this variable is initialized with, is given an initial value. You can say it's given a value of 5. Lowest minutes. Now, lowest minutes, if you remember, the least number of minutes spent will be initialized with the highest abnormal value, like 1000. That's perfectly okay. Then we need one variable class total. And this variable is initialized outside the loop. You can see these three variables are initialized outside the loop once only. Now we are using a variable, student counter for counting the number of students for which the data is to be input, to be worked upon. And for that, we can see for student counter arrow, like assignment operator, 1 to class size. Class size, as you can see, when that may vary from class to class, from different classes at different number of students. So that is why you can see 1 to class size. Assuming that I have a class of maybe 30 students, so for me, it will be 30. Clear? Now, student count, as you can see, the name itself depicts the nature. And you can see the next counter is written here. I sincerely suggest you, the moment you've written for, with pencil, you can write down next just below it. Like definitely leaving a few lines, assuming that how many lines will you be needing, so that you're not forgetting this next at all. And again, recalling, writing down variable with the next is optional. You may omit next. Next is compulsory, definitely. They are friends with each other, for and next go together. But what I'm saying is writing variable with the next is optional. Because I've seen a number of times they have given a question in the debugging where they have not mentioned a variable with next, and students think it's also a problem. So it's also an error, though it is not. Remember, writing variable with next, you may write it perfect, you don't write it still, that's perfectly okay. Now, we are starting, definitely, thank you, Iman, that we have to work with a nested loop. First loop is going to work with student counter, like student number 1. We are talking about for student number 1, when the value of student counter is 1, you can see one more variable. It's different from this total. You can see the name itself depicts the nature. This is the total for student 1, student 2, student 3. In this manner, for each student, the variable total will be initialized with a 0. And that is why it is inside the outer loop. Fine, you can see it's before the inner loop is beginning, we are starting the initializing process once again, and we are initializing this variable here. Along with that, since we have to find out that how many times or how many days is the student spending above 300 minutes. That's why you can see the variable itself, days over 300, that's perfectly okay. Days over 300, arrow 0, means again it is used for counting. After that, what are we doing is, just to make our code a little better, what we are doing is we are validating that the number for input for the minutes is a positive number. And here you can see this is the loop done with repeat until, to validate the number of minutes entered is a value above 0, not a negative value, it's a positive value. Okay, repeat. Output, please enter number of minutes for day counter. Like up to you, you can just mention the day counter. Okay, now thank you very much, Ali, for pinpointing. For day counter equals to 1 to week length. Student 1, day counter 1 to 5. Assuming that we have taken week length 5, that's why the inner loop by the name of, like, the variable that is handling the inner loop is day counter, is going to start from 1 for student number 1 and go until 5. And the very first thing that we are doing is we are simply taking input of the minutes. Assume that the first input was 44 for a student. It means that this will be going here. It will be going to the variable minutes. It will be checked until minutes greater than or equal to 0. Till the time the value of minutes does not become above or equal to 0, keep on taking inputs from the student. Maybe like that's why greater than or equal to? Why? Okay, maybe there's a very good day when the student is not using the screen at all. Isn't it possible? I mean, he may have given his mobile to his parents and is asking, no, I don't want to spend any single minute on screen at the moment. I just want to concentrate entirely on studies. That's why greater than or equal to 0. So you can see this is just a mean to validate the number entered for minutes is a valid value. It is not a negative value. So this is just for validation purpose. We've taken input, we've verified that it's the name, is the number that is entered in minutes a correct one or not. Definitely it will come down if the input is correct. So immediately what are we doing is, in the screen time variable, the screen time array, in this location, as you can see, this is your 2D array. That's where you can see student counter, comma date counter. Assume that the first value for maybe any student whose name is already stored, the value entered maybe was 30. So what will happen? This 30 will be stored where? This 30 will be stored. Student counter is 1, day counter is 1, means 1, comma 1. First look, first row, first column. Now you can see whichever the first value is entered in minutes, that will be stored after being validated in this location number 1 for student number 1. And immediately we are performing this totaling. Immediately you can see total equals to total plus minutes. So keep on ticking with your own question that have you applied this thing? Have you applied this thing? Have you applied this thing? If you have applied, then just keep on ticking for your own sake that you know that I have done the totaling phase also. So total equals to total plus minutes. That's the same concept. So we are done with totaling. It means that I am able to perform one of the required requirements properly. Now you can see if minutes is greater than 300, then days over 300 equals to days over 300 plus 1. This was the variable that we have initialized with a 0 here. And you can see maybe since the number of minutes is 30, 30 is not meeting the criteria. So definitely it won't enter here. It will not be moving here because this is not meeting the criteria. It's not greater than 300. So that is why it will move down. Now we are going for the check for each child that whether his is the least number of minutes spent. So you can see if minutes is less than lowest minutes, then lowest minutes equals to minutes. The same concept as we have learned till now. Just simple handling of the lowest minutes. If the minutes value is less than lowest minutes, definitely in the first instance, 30 is less than 1000. So you can see immediately the value of lowest minutes will be 30. That is for the first child. And now it will be storing the value of 30 in the beginning. Lowest index equals to student counter. So with this way, one more variable that we are using will be holding the name, the location of the child's name. Like for example, if it was student number 1, so 1 will be held. So if it was student number 20, the index will be holding the child who the child number who has the least number of the least number of minutes spent on screen. So in this manner, you can see we have done the totaling, we have done the counting, we have done the process of finding the lowest. In this manner, we performed all the activities and we have mentioned the this thing also, like remember the comments. And how do we write down the comments? The use of slashes. The 2 slashes indicate it's a comment. Totaling, then counting, then finding out the lowest value. In this manner, you perform the activity. And then we are done with the first value for the counter. So you can see it will move back to the, you can see for yourself, this is my day counter. And this day counter will be working with the value starting from here. And it will move over here. Fine. Any questions? Are you clear with this one? For day counter equals to 1 to week length, starting with 1 and go on till 5. In this manner, all the values for student number 1 will be stored in the respective locations. Week 1 for the first student is done. And now we are done with our first like inner loop. For student 1, we are done. Any questions till now? Yes, any questions till now before we proceed? Okay. Now we are done with our student number 1. Now let's move on to what will happen next. You are done with your phase. And now what you will do is, you can see for yourself that we are now going to move on to the loop outside. And we will output student name, student counter. Since the student counter is 1, that's why it will display the name of the first child the output of the screen time. But one thing that we need to see here is, since the question was demanding that I need to go for the display of hours and minutes, that is where you can see what we have done here is div total comma 60 hours mod total comma 60 minutes. This is what is the needed. Assuming the same, like assuming that this was the data entered for the first student, and we have found 270. 270 was the total number of minutes spent for with the data for a DML. I'm taking the same right now at the moment just to make you comprehend the working of div and mod. What are we doing is, if you remember, it means that we are dividing this 270 by 60. Fine. Now 6 4s are 24, and it will be 240 here, and what we obtained will be 30. It means what we found was, am I right? Div will now be, this will be for div. Like you can see, this will be for div. That will be displaying this one. And this is going to be the value for mod. So in this manner, it will show what? It will show Ali Ahmed, his name, screen time, which will be 4 hours, 30 minutes. Am I right? Is my calculation accurate? Isn't it? So in this manner, what the message on the screen for the first child will be the name of the child, the amount of time he has spent, and definitely days with more than 300 minutes. In this case, Ali Ahmed is now nearing the exam time. That's why he's not spending the time on screen at all. And that's why the number of days is 0 here, luckily. Fine, any questions? So we are done with the working of the first child. We are done with the output of the first child. And now is the turn for finding out the class total. So you can see here, the class total is done outside. So once you are done with this, then that's better. You can do, although you can do it inside, but that's always recommended that wherever is the best place to use, then there you will be using. So you can see here, class total equals to class total plus total. So 270 is the total value that is found here. So that will be, you can say, moving on to the class total also. So class total is initialized in the beginning. That will be now holding 270 for the first child. And in this manner, X counter will send it back. And now the value of student counter will become 2. In this manner, the inputs will be taken once again for the second child. And in this manner, you will repeat the same process for the second child. Are we clear? Any questions? Okay, now it's the second child's turn. So here you can see the importance of placement of these initializing here. Now we are starting with second child, definitely. The total for the second child will be from 0 because his is the first value, isn't it? His total should be 0. So that's why the variable total is initialized inside the outer, like you can see inside the loop. And you can see days over 300, since it is also needed for each child separately. That's why it has to be inside the loop also. And then we are iterating once again for the student 2. His details will be stored. You can see day count equals to 1 to 5, keeping in mind the same as we have taken. And that's perfectly okay. If the question had mentioned, then you can take 7 as well. That's perfectly okay. So depending upon that, what is mentioned in the paper. Since nothing was mentioned, that's why we have assumed that they are talking about the weekdays and not the weekends. Fine. For second child, we have repeated the same process. Again, the same validation being done. Now, since student counter is now what? What is the student counter? Yes, what is now the student counter? Can you tell me? Yes, Mano, please. Yes. Is it the same? Has it changed? Yes, the student counter has changed. Now it is your second class student. That's why you have to do it the students in this manner. But now it will be your student number 2. So now you will take input for the second student and you will continue in the same manner. Are we clear? Yes or no? So now we'll continue for second student. In the same manner we'll continue to work for each student separately. Student 1, student 2, student 3. Now, second student, you will iterate again 5 times for student number 2, and you will take the inputs for student number 2. And in this manner, you will continue for student 2, 2 comma 1, 2 comma 2, 2 comma 3. In this manner, you will fill in all the details for second child. In this manner, you will fill in the details for all the values for the third child. In this manner, you will keep on filling the values for each child till the class size has reached. That's why it was declared as a 2D array. You can see 2D array means you are accessing one location by using two subscript numbers. So now it's repetition of the same process for student number 2. His minutes are being checked first. Are they like they are validated? Are they positive? Yes. Moving down, total added for that student number 2. Again, minutes checked for that particular day. If it's above 300, like assume that student number 2 has spent a lot of time on games today. He had asked his mother, and the mother has allowed him to spend maybe he has studied well, or maybe as a you can say a sort of a sort of a gift for him. He has been allowed to play games, and he spent more than 300 minutes. Perfect. Then the days over 300 for that child will be +1. Got it? Again, checking the number of minutes. If it's been less than lowest minutes, that was earlier 30 according to our example, so that will change. In this manner, now we'll iterate for the second student, and we'll keep on doing storing the data for the second student. Outputting the details of the second student, performing the same activity. Now you can see for yourself the use of div and mod. Div is division. Like just one, now we've talked about the division done. Assume that this was maybe 390, for example. Now again, you can see the use of the same process of division by 60. We've applied the same process. 390 means 6 are 36, and then it will be 360. And then we found the value of, after subtraction being done, we have found that he has spent 6 hours and 30 minutes. Got it? Clear? Any issues? So now we are done with second student. In the same manner, we are going to do it with third student and then fourth student. In this manner, we will be able to get the task done for all the students of the class, one by one. And we have calculated this value, we have displayed the required values, and we have also calculated like this class total is also added. And once we are done with all the calculations for the second student, now it's the turn for the third child. Then for the fourth child, any questions? Now, since it's third child, that means we have to work with third child now. Got it? Yes or no? So in this manner, we will be done with the entire process. And once both the loops are over, like the nested loop is performed properly, we are done with the class size. Then the last thing to do is we have to find out the average weekly screen time for the class. And since the variable class total is holding the total class, and the variable class size is holding the class size, in my example, I was talking about 30 as my class size. It will simply talk about that how many minutes are spent by the class average, on an average. And then we'll output lowest weekly time of the student name also. And since lowest index was holding the student who has spent the least amount of time on screen, that's why that location will be accessed directly. Like maybe it was student number 10. Ali Ahmed was the winner in this situation because he has spent this least amount of time on screen. So student name array will be accessed, and then you will be displaying the data for the student name. So are you clear? Any questions till now? Okay, now no questions, maybe move ahead. Jazakallah khairan Kasira for being a part of the learning journey. Hope that you have understood each and everything. You've understood each and everything. Please subscribe my channel, share it with your friends and family so they all are going to benefit from it. They all are going to learn everything from my explanation. and take very good care of yourselves. Keep on studying, keep on updating me with your learning. If you need to learn anything, please do write it in the comments that I know what you want me to like video may teach you people. Allah Hafiz once again.